7-6 is not what you wanted, but it's off to 2024. Talking Canes here on a Wednesday night, as we typically do here at the Voice of College Football. You see the number on the screen there, 359 weeks. Cam Underwood's here, of course, to make it all happen for us. Catch Cam and the rest of the staff there at State of the U on a regular basis. Talking Miami sports, we talk football here. Cam, how you doing tonight?
Doing well, doing good. Happy New Year and everything to you, Mark, and to everybody who's watching. Thanks for coming out. And as always, go Canes. But, we have still further to go to get to where we want to be.
Yeah, when I think about the bowl game that was played at Yankee Stadium, the news cycle moves so quickly that it just seems like it was forever ago. But I would like to get your thoughts. Of course, Rutgers won at 31-24. I can't say that I was laser focused, locked in on the game. It was one of those deals where I'm hanging out, families playing cards, watching stuff, doing things. And I got my laptop here with the game on, like in front of me, but with no sound. And I'm trying to keep track of what's going on. And of course, especially that first quarter and much of the first half was just Rutgers playing Rutgers football to a T and just grinding that clock. And I think they went to the second quarter and Miami had run 5 plays. It was something ridiculous like that.
Give or take, yeah. We didn't have the ball much, especially early, but also throughout the game. I mean, Rutgers held the ball for 35 minutes. Like, their goal is to shorten the game. They're like a step ahead or away from military academy in their operations. They want to run the ball. They had the Big Ten's leading rusher. Don't even remember the kid's name, but I mean, he was tough to tackle.
Kyle Monangai.
Yeah, him.
Monangai. I apologize. Right. Monangai.
But I mean, he's a solid running back. He was the leading rusher in that conference. They got a couple of guys who, if you're like a real recruitnik like I am, like I remember Curtis Dunlap, who went to IMG and then started at Wisconsin before he went over to Rutgers, number 51 on the offensive line. He was I think he was a high school All-American. Like I said, went to IMG, and everything. So talented guy in his third or fourth year along the offensive line, and another couple dudes maybe around that kind of caliber. But yeah, like I was saying, they want to be. I mean, it's very service academy like. They threw the ball 15 times. They only completed 7 of those passes. Their quarterback is not good. Like, he's pretty abjectly terrible. But when you're able to run it like they were able to run it, doesn't really matter. You know what I mean?
Gavin Wimsatt. Yes.
Yeah, Gavin Wimsatt. Like, he's athletic. Like, he ran around a little bit and everything, but, like, he's not very polished, in terms of demonstrable performance. But again, when you're running the ball for 5 and 6 yards a carry with your lead running back, and the backup also had similar per carry averages, even though the raw number was clearly lower because Monangai or whatever his name is ran the ball almost 30 times. Yeah, so that was frustrating. Clearly taking advantage of a Miami front that was missing guys who opted out and had gotten injured throughout the course of the year. Akeem Mesidor, figure he's going to be first, maybe second team all ACC. He plays a handful of snaps across 2 games. Nigel Lee Kelly, I was pumping him up as being a guy who's going to take a huge leap this year. He didn't play much more, and he got out, injured for the year. Leonard Taylor, in the defensive tackle, he decides I'm going to the draft, so I'm not going to play, which I understand. But especially up front, that was really where things, broke down a little bit. I mean, and you're missing James Williams as that big safety to come down into the box as well at 6'5", 225, 230. And, to their credit, Rutgers was able to take advantage of that. They were able to leverage some issues and turnovers into points. And Miami didn't have the explosiveness on offense that was needed on the other side. So, you put all that together and, you lose a game. But, I mean, it was – I mean, if you want to go the moral victory route, it was a touchdown game. I don't necessarily know you want to go the moral victory route against the 6-6 Rutgers. But yeah, it had moments, but it also left much to be desired. I think you could talk about Jacurri Brown in those same exact terms. But yeah, I mean, there were a couple high notes. Ruben Bain was a monster. Francisco Malanoa was a beast. Isaiah Horton stepping in for the now departed to Georgia Colby Young at the X receiver, 5 for 54, looking like he can take a step forward. Jared Harrison Hunt, 81 at defensive tackle, making plays. Dylan Joyce, pretty good day punting, when the blockers didn't decide to let them block one of his punts. And then Xavier Restrepo with a a program record 80-plus catches in a single season. So, again, there were some things to like. There were some things not to like, and including losing. But
I'm going to ask you about your overall feelings about this type of situation before I get to a particular player that you mentioned, because a bowl game is just different than any other game. Mm-hmm. And at one point in our sports history, it was considered to be just more important than, well, actually, if you go way, way back, it was considered to be an exhibition game. The polls actually came out before the bowl game. And then it completely turned sometime in the 60s, 70s. It completely turned to be, I think, because of the massive TV audience and because these games were on TV and they were matching up the best brands across the country that never played each other. And suddenly they were the biggest games of the season. Mm-hmm. And now they've settled back down somewhere close to what they were prior to the television age. So take out Florida State, that's a rivalry game. Take out anything that you would deem as an extremely important game, or if Miami's having the type season where, oh, wow, this is a big game suddenly because, hey, we're 7-1, we want to get to 8-1, or take out 2017, winning all those games in a row. Let's just say you're 5-3, the season's kind of lost, but you still want to have a decent season and a decent record. How does losing this game compare to losing to fill in the blank North Carolina in late October when you're 4-2?
Infinitely less, infinitely lower.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because like you're talking about, those games have consequence. Losing to North Carolina, that's a game that matters. This is an exhibition. You're already missing guys who were transferred out. Tyler Van Dyke at Wisconsin in a number 10 Badgers jersey on the sideline. You know what I mean? Like, there are guys. Let's say Colby Young.
It's
standing. He's not playing.
In regards to, it counts on the record.
It counts on the record, but no, it's not even. No, not even close. To me, maybe others would feel differently. Would I preferred to have gotten to 8 if we had beaten, taken that knee against Georgia Tech, and you had the rest of the season go the same? You're 8-4, trying to get to 9. Yeah, I would have preferred that. But in terms of like feeling like a needle in the throat or something, or like a knife in the throat, no. I want to play well. I want to win. I see it for what it is at this point, especially in a mid-tier bowl game in a baseball stadium. Whatever.
Okay, you mentioned Xavier Restrepo. He catches 11 balls for 99 yards and breaks the single-season reception record, as you noted. So maybe there's a little bit more to this guy, in that we know that he was Tyler Van Dyke's favorite target, but even when you take him out of the mix, I noticed late in the season, then it's punctuated by this game, he's still getting open and getting the football.
Yeah, look, he's he's a technician in the slot. It's easier to see, obviously, inside the numbers, in the window, of the quarterback looking down the field. And for whatever reason, and there were other guys open at sometimes, but Jacurri targeted him 17 times. Like, that's out of 30. What was it, even 30? out of 31 passing attempts, 17 targets to Restrepo. That's Randy Moss ratio type stuff from when he was in Minnesota. You know what I mean? Like that's wow. But again, 11 catches. Yeah. I still think he is talented. He can play here at Miami. He is not stealing a scholarship or anything like that like I believe has been the case with other people. I still think that he's best served as a 2 or a 3 receiver, not the number 1, just because he has some athletic limitations. And he's a gamer. He plays hard. He cares about the U. Like, I'm not taking anything away from him, but I just believe he's a little miscast as the number 1 receiver. But push came to shove, and 17 out of the 31 times that he dropped back, well, I think we got sacked twice. So 17 out of 33 dropbacks, and 31 times when he cut the ball loose, Jacurri Brown looked towards number 7. So, I mean, he is a solid player. I think, he's come. Restrepo's already announced that he's coming back for the 2024 season, which is helpful when you have somebody of his level of performance. I don't think that he's going to hit the same numbers as this year, next year. I don't think he's going to break his own single season receiving record for receptions. You know what I mean? But he's a solid player. He's an above average to good, full stop good college receiver. Again, I just think he's miscast as a number 1, but he goes out there, does his job, plays hard in like multiple segments of the game or phases of the game. If you remember that Brashard Smith return touchdown against Texas A&M, Restrepo was the one in front who flattened out the kicker and created that lane. So, I mean, he has value in multiple ways. You should be happy that he's a Miami Hurricane. Again, I think that they're valuing him in the passing game a little over where his talent would warrant. But even with that being said, you cannot be negative about the performance that was seen from him. So, I would rather have him on my team than not, to be perfectly honest. He did a solid job. I think that's going to continue, and having that slot receiver who can win those option routes, win those whip routes, all those kind of things, again, between the hash marks, between the numbers in the middle of the field window for a quarterback to see first before like really checking, towards the outside, which is harder for Jacurri Brown to read, obviously, and throw, because we saw that's really where some of the issues came. Getting Xavier Restrepo to come back is a definite positive for the Hurricanes. But yeah, that's a guy who's done his dollar, regardless of what anybody thinks of him. And he should be proud of his accomplishments, and we should be proud that he's a Hurricane, to be perfectly honest.
Absolutely. That's impressive when somebody's able to extract every ounce of potential out of themselves and maximize their abilities. Falconer TRX, we appreciate you being here. You know that. Leroy's here to talk 2025 recruiting. Leroy, appreciate you. What would be our focus in the 2025 class, since the last 2 classes, it was about offensive line, defensive line, and wide receiver?
I would throw linebacker in there low key for the last couple of classes as well, especially closing with Adarius Hayes flipping from Florida. You got a couple other guys. You had 3 or 4 dudes last year in being what has been the focus of the last 2 classes. I would add linebacker to that cadre. Honestly, we're at the point, like, wide receiver still needs to be, because Jeremiah Smith went somewhere else. I'm going to keep it a buck. I think that we do have good guys in this class, yet and still. Like, the practices for the All-American Bowl, formerly the U.S. Army All-American game, are ongoing right now. And I had to close my Twitter today because every clip was Jeremiah Smith just lighting a DB on fire. Just every single rep. I mean, it hurt my heart to watch it, because every time, the 3 that I saw, it was just like, damn it, I wish he was wearing this orange and green, this U that I'm rocking right now. And I had to close my Twitter. I had to walk away from it. Wrote some emails, read some stuff for work, some more stuff. I was like, I was even on a break and said, it hurt my heart, man, because he is just damn different, and we need one of those dudes. So you're still going to continue to do that. I think that the focus, honestly, is going to swing back to offensive line, because the class from last year, the Francis Mawanoa, Samson Okulola, that whole class, they're going to be in their third year in 25. So we got some good developmental dudes, and even Markel Bell, 6'9", 355 JUCO tackle, who's probably going to figure into playing next year. Like, it was funny. I was talking with my buddies as was watching some football over this break and everything. And, Lions, Cowboys getting screwed by the refs for being stupid. But it's the Lions. It always happens like that for us, whatever. And like watching the Rose Bowl, let's go blue, and everything. And was just like, dude, we're talking about, because we were in college together, my friends and I. And like, so we were there and had parties and like lunch with Bryant McKinney. Like, man, I wish we had somebody like that. I was like, hey, we just signed a dude who like is technically listed as larger than what Bryant McKinney was when he came from JUCO. Just want to throw that out there. I'm not saying that Markel Bell is going to be, but like, it was just, we were walking down memory lane and I was just like, I don't know if he's going to be the same player. I don't know he's a Hall of Famer and a college Hall of Famer as well. But size-wise, pretty much the same. Wait, no, sorry. McKinney was 6'9", 364, and he's 355. So or 46. So within 8 pounds, 9 pounds, one way or the other, right? So I'm like, this is, it's possible. But I say all of that to say, he's a JUCO guy, so he's coming in with limited future eligibility. You have some guys in the last class and this class that are developmental, so they're going to take a couple years into like next year and the year after. But, the guys like at the top, Francis Mawanoa, hello, he's looking like Penei Sewell, 3 years in the first-round draft pick. So it becomes time that you start stocking the top of that roster for the future again at offensive line. So that was my way of saying the lines are always going to be priorities, but I would say offensive line especially is going to be one. Would love another top-tier defensive tackle. And then, if you're looking at what's on the screen and where the focus has been, offensive line, defensive line, wide receivers, and I respectfully submit linebacker also in the last two classes. Hey, guys, the places that aren't listed. I'm not going to say running back because we got the so Florida switched their classifications to suburban and metropolitan, basically. So instead of going 1A to 8A, they made like two different tiers to basically remove some people from running into Aquinas all the damn time. But anyway, the 4M classification, analogous to the 8A classification, the co-players of the year from Broward County, both of them, Chris Wheatley-Humphrey and Jordan Lyle, running backs, signed with Miami. So we talked about this in years past with like Donald Chaney Jr. and Jalen Knighton. I'm not looking at running back. Always at quarterback, Luke Nickel looking like he took a huge step forward in leading Milton, Georgia to a state championship as a junior this past year. I know I was a little skeptical when we took him as our recruit in 25. Go look up the film. Luke Nickel converted me into a believer. 3,914 yards, 40 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, beat Nye Carr and Colquitt County, boosted them or bumped them out of the playoffs in the quarterfinals on the way to a championship. Kid really bossed up. But, I mean, look, the positions that were not listed as ones that we've discussed or anything else, cornerback and safety, where you just lost guys to the portal and 2 dudes to the league. That's going to be where I think the focus should be. But always, always, always believe Mario Cristobal is here to recruit to a high level. And I know what you're saying. When is it going to turn into wins? We can't just keep winning on the show. We can't be the off-season champions like, all the rival fans say, and like, yeah, we're doing this. And, a Wednesday in December, it feels really good. But then past that, who knows? In terms of it turning into wins, your guess is as good as mine. However, This is an ongoing process that I said from before was going to take 3 full years to get the roster flipped to where Mario wanted it to be. Remember, 2022 was year 0. This is year 1. 23 was recruiting year 1. 24 is recruiting year 2. 25 is recruiting year 3 at the end of the 24 season. So hopefully when he gets the roster where he wants it to be, kind of towards where, Oregon was when he was there. I know Lanning has done a great job to continue that and even elevate it a little bit slightly further. When we get there, hopefully then we'll have the ability to get the wins that we all desire. But in terms of the question, which is a really good one, always looking at quarterback, because I think that there's going to be lots of other teams that are going to go after Luke Nickel after the season he put up as a junior at Milton, Georgia. And then the defensive secondary, in addition to offensive line, would be the places to really look. And then also just like a number 1 wide receiver, because the one who should have been the number 1 is going up the road.
They just brought in a top 5 recruiting class. If they stack top 5 recruiting classes, unless they are Texas of Charlie Strong and Tom Herman, who didn't know what to do with those classes, everybody else that has consistently recruited that level year after year after year, and we know what basically 3 or 4 schools those are, basically stack 11-1 seasons on top of each other year after year after year. So unless they are completely, I hate to go this harsh, but it would prove to be pretty incompetent in developing. Now, one top 5 class is nice. That's not going to get it done at that level. But if you stack 3 or 4 of those, you know better than I do that those should turn into 11-1 football teams.
Should, absolutely. And hopefully we're going to get there. There is the quarterback issue currently in Miami, which I'm sure somebody will ask about or whatever. But I mean, the clear path forward was Cam Ward at quarterback. We were all in on that. We brought in other dudes, to visit and said, hey, that's where we want to go. And he debated and decided, and depending on if you believe reports or not, but, Mike Ryan from the Dan Le Batard show, who's fairly plugged when he says things, said, hey, there was an agreement for NIL. Everybody thought that was the green light. After that agreement was made, he went radio silent for a week and a half, 2 weeks, and then announced for the NFL. And as a 4th or 5th year guy, I understand, with chronology. Now it's a little bit different at quarterback than it is at like a position where your full locomotor athleticism is the entire basis of your potential in the league. I get it. But still wanting to get there and looking at the landscape and saying, hey, a couple guys came back and whoever, this is the time. Yeah. But in terms of Miami, chips were in, like we all were all in on Cam Ward and him bringing his ability here, covering the performance gap that has been seen at quarterback. Now that he's off to the league, where do you go? Will Howard, I was right before, by the way, he did not go to USC. He visited, he did not commit there. It was supposed to be committed, I believe, but did not actually. But, your favorite team, Ohio State, slow played it, portal closes, and then it's, hey, there we go. He's actually coming in for a visit, to go play for the Acorns and everything. Oh, the other quarterbacks, they can't leave now. And, what are you going to do? But it looks like he's heavily trending that direction and everything. So that's another guy that Miami brought in. He's not coming here. KJ Jefferson committed to UCF. He's not coming here. So it's like, and then we never went after DJ Uiagalelei, and he's going to Florida State. But like, Florida State, again, we've been recruiting against them, and we've lost going head-to-head with other things for the players that they and we both want, right? We brought in Cam Ward, they brought in Cam Ward. Cam Ward and his father have said the choice was Miami or the league, not Florida State. Jeremiah Smith himself said the choice was staying at Miami or going to O State. Notice how in neither one of those did I mention Florida State. Okay. So, I mean, if you want to have that as a moral victory, great, but in terms of chasing a quarterback, where are you going? And for me, I know when I mentioned weeks ago, I wanted Cam and I wanted Dante Moore. And Mark, you were like, oh my God, you're being greedy. Look at Oregon. They got Dylan Gabriel for next year and Dante Moore for the future. They did exactly what I said, just with a different guy at the top. So now it's just like, okay, AA Malik Murphy going to Duke to play for Manny Diaz. So that's another super talented, gigantic dude with a cannon who's not coming here. We didn't even really kick the tires. Why? Because we were all in on Cam Ward. That's another guy that we could have pursued and did not. So now what do? Do you go after Malachi Nelson from USC? Bring him in and say, hey, 4-way battle. Everybody's even, right? Malachi Nelson, Jacurri Brown, Emory Williams, if his arm is healed, because who knows, there's rumors that he might not even be available for spring because his break was maybe a little bit worse than they initially thought, and Judd Anderson, all four, bring them in, roll the ball out, whoever wins, wins. Do you do that? Do you stay with the 3 and try to get like a lower level Jake Heaps walk on just as like a old man in the club to teach them how to be a professional and like kind of raise the floor type thing? I don't know, but I mean, look, it's good that Jacurri Brown is staying, first of all, because otherwise you definitely needed the 2 transfers that I projected before the season because I knew that Tyler wasn't coming back and thought that Jacurri could have left, but he's going to be here. So at least you only need 1 to have 4 in the room and be really, from a numbers standpoint, comfortable. Not necessarily in performance because, who really knows? But that is the thing. And the breakdown at the quarterback position, this is why I've talked about this so long, getting back to the original point. The breakdown of the quarterback position and performance is the thing that hurt this team so much to lose so many of these games, right? Tyler Van Dyke threw 12 interceptions. Pro Football Focus has 10 of those coming from clean pockets where they say, we're going to play zone and we're going to wait because you're going to throw it to the wrong color jersey. You guys are wearing green. We're wearing white today. Let me get that. We're in North Carolina and you're wearing all white. Cool. That's going to go to the powder Carolina blue linebacker who's sitting there in cover 2 playing underneath saying there has to be a crosser coming behind me because he's looking right here. You know what I mean? And that lack of performance or that poor performance was the thing. So, yeah, you can have these top 5 classes. You can have this talent all over the roster. You can have guys playing very, very well. But at the quarterback position, you have to find an upgrade from the level of performance that was seen, or you have to change up kind of the paradigm whole scale. Are you going Jacurri Brown and then you're going to run way, way, way more? You know what I mean? And then, what happens? First play of the bowl game, play action over the top to Jacolby George, who had the worst game that he's had since, maybe his freshman year at Plantation High School. I mean, he had not played that poorly. And again, from down here, saw that man play in high school, hearing all kinds of dudes in, the press box and all kinds of dudes around. You got dudes from all kinds of other publications and outlets and, blogs and things. I'm not going to name them, but if you're on social media, all the other guys I'm talking about. Jacolby George, he's that guy. He's that guy. He's that guy. 60 yards over the top on the first play. Jacurri put the ball on a dime, goddamn. And he drops it. Bro, what do you want? Because now we're not going to be able to go over the top anymore. That was the release valve shot that could have changed what we did and how we operated on offense. You're that dude now, right? You want to be that guy. Boom. So now even when he makes that kind of a throw, in the trick play, oh my God, he's still running to this day, right now, a week and a half after the bowl game. And if you look at it, it was perfectly sequenced, perfectly called. You had the left guard pulling out to the left. You had a tackle, tight end coming across like he's having a split zone block. And so you got 2 dudes. You got a wide receiver on the outside blocking his guy into the bench. Nothing but 2 linemen basically in front of you, green grass and opportunity. flowing the other way. Everybody's looking at Jacurri Brown. What can Brown do for you? He's going to the right. Whole defense flowing that way, except for the guy who's getting blocked into, back into Manhattan. You throw that underneath. Oh, boom. Playboy, I got you. You drop that one, call a play right for you. It's a touchdown, and you drop that. Lord God Almighty. And 3 penalties, including an offsetting one. He had the worst game. And those 2 drops were so impactful of a negative way that even with Jacurri going 20 for 31, imagine had he caught either. Man, but I say all that to say Miami does also need a quarterback, and top 5 classes can top 5 class. But if you don't got a quarterback in the world of football, you don't really have a chance to win.
All right, back to quarterback. Unless I'm missing somebody, Will Howard, I believe, has been ranked by most as the 2nd best quarterback to Cam Ward in the nation. And
in the transfer portal, yes.
In the transfer portal. I don't know how I got the misinformation, but yes, I made this is not my style to make a proclamation that Will Howard had signed at USC. I believe that was substantiated by a number of sites. Maybe they jumped the gun because that's, of course, where I get my information.
Yeah.
Regardless, I thought that was substantiated at the time. It is clearly not. Will Howard is up for grabs.
2 seconds. Be right back.
Sure. So we got Will Howard, the number 1 available quarterback. Now, the Cam Ward has apparently decided to go to the NFL. What I'm going to set up Cam to discuss is maybe I'm overrating KJ Jefferson, but I have been a KJ Jefferson guy for a few years. I don't know what I'm not seeing here. 21-4 and 24-5 TD to pick ratios in the SEC. Tack on another 10 or 12 rushing touchdowns. This dude's racking up 35 touchdowns against very low. And when I first saw him play at Arkansas, I thought, well, they're forcing this guy to be a quarterback. He's an athlete. He's not a quarterback. And within 2 seasons, he's ripping it at 68, 69% completion percentage in the SEC.
Yeah.
He went to UCF.
And I mean,
I got to think Miami versus UCF.
But the thing is, we were in on Cam Ward.
I know, but
so even if we're kicking the tires, right, at that point of the process, everybody knows that Cam Ward was our number 1. Even Will Howard, who came in around that same time, even if we were to just say, hey, KJ, you feel like coming down? If he would have tried to commit, what do we do? Probably don't take it. You know what I mean? So I hear you, but of the available options at the time, I think and I think just maybe because of the overall timing with, Florida State, Miami, other teams looking around, I think UCF might have just made out like a thief in the night. I think they just hit it was the perfect scenario timing for them. And yeah, they get a guy who's, averaging, like 35, 37 touchdowns with minimal. Well, he did fumble the ball a little bit, but I mean, still with, fewer than 10 turnovers a year. And they're fine with dink and dunk screen game stuff because they run that really, really well. Screen game, maybe try to hit a big boy throw on a 3rd down when you need to convert it. And then, scheme up some stuff, especially with the running game for a play action shot over the top. He fits that pretty well. And I think that they just, it was the perfect storm, and they're making out like a thief in the night with him.
All right, let's get to these super chats. We appreciate the contributions, folks. Legendary scratch builds.
Okay.
How bright can the future be with Jacurri Brown as QB1 after looking at the Pinstripe Bowl? We'll clean up that. Yes, we'll clean up that spelling right there, and seeing his positive steps going forward.
He still needs to take a couple more steps, but you can start to see what you want like you can start to see the picture coming together, right? You remember those things when we were kids, or depending on age, but where it was like a kaleidoscope thing, and you had to look at it a certain way and kind of cross your eyes for the 3D picture to pop out.
Sure.
Like it's starting to get there. Like you're starting to see the outline of what it can be, you know, like again, he has a very strong arm. Loved to see that first throw. Would have loved it more if it was caught. You know, there was another touchdown to Xavier Restrepo where Miami got screwed on the left sideline because he was actually in, but whatever. But that was a back shoulder dime, right? You're starting to see, okay, he's starting to use this gigantic arm he has appropriately. Now, did he throw a couple grounders like he was doing infield practice at Yankee Stadium? Yes, he did. Was his footwork off a little bit? Yeah. But was it as bad as before? Absolutely not. So you see, okay, there's steps forward with the accuracy. There's steps forward with just his confidence. Step forward with the variability or the multiple ways to use his arm, right? Because before it was always just as hard as possible. Like I'm just throwing lasers. Saw a little touch here, you know, like, you know, hitting a check down on the flat. You start to see those things, right? We're running QB power. We're doing something where it looks like we're running option. And then off of that, we had the trick play to Jacolby George, which he dropped. So you're starting to see, okay, this is what it could look like. And if you take a step forward in progression, there are levels that he can get to based upon his athletic talent. He still needs to develop the skill. Remember, talent is God-given, skills developed. So the talent is there, but you're now starting to see the talent come together in the appropriate way. So it could be where the light is really starting to go off for him, and then he does take a big step forward this offseason and then fall practice. But yeah, you can start to see what we all talked about when we signed Jacurri Brown, right? Of this, I mean, he's a massive dude, 6'4.5", 6'5". He's probably up to 225, almost 230 now. Long strider, strong arm, can throw it, can run it. Is a gamer, multiple time state champion in high school, led a fourth down, a drive where they scored on fourth in the championship to win that last state championship in high school. So you're starting to see, okay, he's a gamer. And in the game, even though it wasn't every moment, it wasn't every single play, you started to see that peek through the clouds, that's that ray of sunshine. So it could be bright. The potential is there, but he still has to put in the work from where he is to where he could be to make that happen. But it would be a different looking offense than Emory Williams, because Emory can't run like Jacurri, like clearly, and neither can Judd. But the potential is there. Whether that comes to consistent fruition remains to be seen, but it could be bright, especially if he takes another step forward this next offseason, like it seems that he did in this past, year.
So how good are you going to feel about going into next season with the quarterbacks currently on the roster, not just because of your evaluation of their talent, but your confidence in the coaching staff to develop them and to scheme to their strengths?
I still wish that we had a stopgap. I wish that we had a Cam Ward, a KJ Jefferson, just to give them another year just to develop. We don't have that though. So I incomplete at this point. I want to see who or if there's another player who ends up at that position on this roster going into next season. If it were just these three, 6 out of 10 confidence, maybe a little bit positive, but not as positive as I was in the past. But then again, I was very positive about Tyler Van Dyke, and you saw how that worked out. So who knows?
Well, everyone else was too. Paulo, thank you so much for being here. Do you see Mario waiting for the spring transfer portal window to get a quarterback?
Depends on this whole window. So the transfer portal is closed, i.e., you're not having new players enter the portal anymore. I know that Alabama had a bunch of guys announced just after their bowl game and everything because of the timing with the semifinals and yada yada. I get that, but they still had to have put their name in before the deadline, and it just got announced with like 9 of them in half an hour today. But that was really just all the journalists kind of giving them the space to, play in the semifinals and then news dump all of them out. So you're not having any new players that are not already in the portal go into the portal currently. But again, you have a Malachi Nelson out there, former 5-star, like number 1 from Los Alamitos, California. He's a guy, and who knows, with that, obviously I would hope that Miami's called him. As we've turned our focus elsewhere since our number 1 target is going to the NFL draft. But yeah, I really think it depends. I don't really think that I'm forgetting anybody. So I'll go so as far, Paulo, as to say this. I think that the answer to your question is contingent upon what happens with Malachi Nelson. If he comes to Miami, then I think that we would stand pat with those 4, have a 4-way quarterback battle. Whoever wins, wins. If Malachi Nelson does not end up at the University of Miami, then I think you're looking at the spring window to add a depth player moving for next year. Yeah.
Light Skin Cage, appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for the contribution, going in a direction that I was going to lead us in to a certain extent. Love the show per usual. Generic question, but how important is year 3 for Mario Cristobal, given the trend over the last 20 years that a vast majority of successful upper tier Power 5 coaches and programs win 10 games by year 3? Is 9 or 10 wins a must?
How important is year 3? Very. Given that trend, yeah, you want to be moving in the direction of double-digit wins, whether that's regular season or including a bowl game win. You definitely want to be on that path and trajectory. Now, if you have linear growth from this year, right? Last year to this was +2 wins. This year to next, +2 wins. Then you're at 9, right? Growth is not necessarily always in a directly linear thing. It is progressional. Sometimes you take a step forward, sometimes you take a step back. But if there is linear growth, yeah, I think that would be really great. But looking at the schedule, again, as we've been saying so many times, it sets up very well for Miami to push for that level of success. Is Miami able to get out of Miami's way and achieve that kind of positive result throughout the course of the season? We're going to see. But yeah, this year is important? Very. And again, especially I counted 22 as year 0. You had a little itty bitty piece of a recruiting class because Mario came late in the cycle, and you're tearing everything down to the foundation. This is year 1. Next year, is year 2, but year 3 of recruiting in this with a full cycle to recruit. But yeah, you really are getting to the point of, and I need to write it this week, but in looking in, my purview of the recruiting rules and the recruiting rules recap and everything, we're hitting every single rule all up and down the list of how you build a championship team, how you improve this roster, how you do all those things. And rule number 9 at the end is win. You have to give people demonstrable work product, proof of concept, not still the abstract, but in the tangible. We went on the field with the guys that we're bringing in, and we won these games. Again, if you win the Georgia Tech game and you win the bowl game or another game along the way, you're at 9 wins coming off of 5. You got freshman All-American. The team looks different. You got a couple key transfers that are starring in some places. Now you're selling that, saying, hey, now Jeremiah Smith, cherry on top. we've already taken this massive step forward with what we got. You come here and then you're putting us over the top, right? That's really where things are going to go, especially because, yes, recruiting is based on relationships, but it's also based on performance. And it's real easy for other teams to negative recruit the way that it looks on television, because like nobody showed up against, a 10-win Louisville team on senior day and we lost, and the bowl game and things like that. So you're like, hey, the last time that you saw them, play well was in September against another team that only went 7-5. Against anybody else, you really want to go there? Is that what you want to do? Right?
Clemson.
Yeah, fine. I'll give you that. Sure. But are there really more instances than that? Than like the middle of October, early middle of October? Not really, right? So you have to have the work, the results to back it up. And how's that going to happen? With a strong year 3 of this cycle, for me, year 2, but year 3 of recruiting and getting towards that double-digit wins, either in the regular season or with the bowl game. That has to really be the goal. Obviously, we always want to go undefeated, but like being realistic, I don't believe this team is an undefeated kind of team right now. So then setting realistic goals, should we be pushing for that 10 wins total, regular season, postseason, whatever you want to call it? I think so. And it's really going to be incumbent upon everybody to get there this year.
When I evaluate situations like this, I tend to go to the historical route and try to look at like situations. And aside from very different type programs that don't have the resources, the talent base, all of that, like a Bill Snyder at Kansas State, where he basically took a dearth of nothing and made it something. Those aside, usually when somebody shows up who is ultimately successful at a place where, sure, there are issues and dysfunction, but man, there's a gold mine of untapped talent, resources, everything that you could ever want, location, and so forth. They usually make it happen. Somebody correct me in the chat. It usually happens fairly soon.
No, you're right. And, I think that gets to Light Skin Cage's question. Like, it's not usually when you have for example, like a Bill Snyder at K-State, that was a developmental program. Like you're going to have, fifth year senior laden teams. Like it's going to take years down the road for the seeds that we're planting when we first get there to then spring into the trees of success. But in most other places, successful upper Power 5 coaches and programs, it is more on the early side with success than late. I mean, you can look all over. You look at, I know that his run has been incredible, but look at Saban at Alabama. Alabama wasn't Alabama when he got there, right? It's not what it is now. That happened fairly quickly. When he was at LSU, look at Jimbo at Florida State, because Bobby and them, they were good, but they were not the 90s into the early 2000s Florida State top 5 for 13 years in a row. They were not that Florida State. Jimbo gets there, they win pretty quickly, and then it fell off. You can look Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. You can look look, Kalen DeBoer over at Washington. You can look all these other places, right? Pete Carroll when he was at SC. You can name lots of different ones where very early in the tenure, that's when you ascended to the top of the mountain. So again, to the question that's still on the screen, it is really imperative that sooner than later, i.e. this year or next year, Miami really pushes towards that. But even if they don't, fully expect Mario to be here for at least 5. Like they're going to give him 5 full seasons, come hell or high water. Even if it's 8 wins, 9 wins, 7 wins. I know that you don't like hearing that, but it's true. Unless the bottom falls out, he's going to be here for 5 full seasons, especially if he recruits the way that he is. So, we'll see.
My mind was making all those stops mentally that you just did. Pete Carroll, first year at USC, and I'm taking all these locations that are on the Miami level, meaning this is where you can win a national championship. There's only about 10 or 12 places in the nation you can realistically say you can win a national championship there. Pete Carroll, USC, year one was 6-6, and then boom, they're in the Orange Bowl. They're winning the Orange Bowl. They're top 5 in the nation, and then they're off to the races. Urban Meyer, which kind of surprised me when several months, no, this would have been prior to Mario Cristobal. You said, give me Urban Meyer, regardless of what you think of him as a person. Obviously, he steps on campus, boom, Florida, boom, they're off to the race. Ohio State, boom, they're 12-0. They're off to the races immediately. Nick Saban, Alabama, 1 year at 7-6, then boom, SEC championship game. They're in the top 5 in the nation. They're off to the race. It usually, these kind of guys, there's not many of them, but they make it happen in a hurry.
I mean, I think that what's the name? Hold on, I'm just looking it up right now. Dabo, 4-3 took over, 9-5, 6-7, and then 10, 11, 11, 10, 14, 14, 12. Like it was, okay, 1, 2, 3, well, 2.5, because he took over midway through the 08 season. So he got 2 full seasons, 9 wins, and a top 25 finish, and a bowl win in the Music City Bowl, 6-7, and lost the Meineke Car Care Bowl, and then 2011 on up until 2022, double-digit wins every single year. So even someone like that, at a non-traditional powerhouse that hadn't won anything since, I'm no spring chicken, and they hadn't won anything in my lifetime until Dabo. You know what I mean? Like it had been, what was it, 1980 they split it with Georgia?
81.
Oh, so the year I was born. Okay, cool. So, you know what I mean? Like, they had not done anything, but even still, it got on and popping from pretty average. I mean, look, we all remember the phrase Clemsoning, where they looked like they would be something and then found a way to, steal, their own joy and like lose from the, ability to win, a la Miami with Georgia Tech this past year. But like, Clemsoning was a thing, and he overcame that. And like I said, 2 full seasons, 9, 6, and then the sky was the limit. So yeah, you want to have your coaching program get on that same path in the now time frame would be great. Yeah.
All right, we've got Light Skin Cage coming back with this one just to provide evidence. Michigan, Texas, Washington, Clemson, Florida State, Notre Dame, Ole Miss, Bama, Oklahoma, LSU, Penn State, Oregon, Wisconsin, etc. all win 10 games by year 3. All went on to be nationally relevant the last 20 years.
Exactly the conversation we're having. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you look at, even extend that out, James Franklin, even, at Penn State, when you had different coaches at Wisconsin, all these other schools. Yeah, exactly. Like you want to really in that year 3 kind of time frame. So it really depends on what you believe. Again, I count 2022 as year 0, not year 1. Although, if you want to be true, right, that's year 1. Last year was year 2, and then this is 3. So, but I'm on record as saying that was a year 0 situation. I've been said that. But it would be actually 4 real seasons, not the way that I'm looking at them, but real time, calendar years. So, yeah, again, to the point, and it's a really great question, supported with really a great follow-up as well. Yeah, Miami finding a way to push up towards that double-digit win total in the now time frame is historically when and where you would want that to be. You might be able to extend it out a little bit, in my viewpoint, to the 25 season. Only because Mario Cristobal is going to continue to recruit at an elite level. So hopefully you're going to have the talent, but like, he makes a great point, man. Like you're really starting to look at targeting that year 3 more or less.
Bob Stoops took over Oklahoma at its worst ebb in 50, 60 years, won 7-5 national championship. Boom, year 2. All right. Eddie's been with us for a long time. Appreciate you being here, man. Good evening, gents. Mario is not only a poor game manager, he also does not manage the roster well. Guys like Lichtenstein and Lou Cristobal should not be starting. Jacurri Brown should have started since the Florida State game to prep him for 2024.
In terms of the bowl game starters, I take that with some understanding. You know, like Matt Lee and Javion Cohen are going to the NFL. Now, do I think that Lou Cristobal, that is the nephew, Luis Cristobal, do I think that he should have played? No, it should have been Matthew McCoy. Like, I don't think that there's really a question there. And every time I looked up and Luis Cristobal was on the field, he's either on the ground or he's facing the wrong way and getting spun around and beat by somebody. Like on fourth down and everything, it's just like everybody held their block, but your nephew. Like, I mean, hey, Lichtenstein didn't start. And he actually played a halfway decent game, but at some point, like he's a 7th-year senior, right? And he's also big, and we needed big dudes like to play along the defensive line. So I mean, he didn't start, but he did play in the game. I am less upset about Lichtenstein. I almost called him Adam, who's a journalist friend of mine. I forget his name. Jacob Lichtenstein. I am less perturbed with him getting snaps than I am with Luis Cristobal. But yeah, I mean, but managing the roster, again, you're taking into account it's the transfer portal window, and then you're going to be depleted at some spots when you have guys leave, especially with a roster that we know does not have the kind of depth that we need it to have at present anyway. Right. So you really need those top line guys there and playing to their level, but then they remove themselves from the roster on both sides of the ball. Okay. In terms of should Jacurri Brown have started since FSU to prepare him for next year, that is an interesting quandary because you have to assume that Miami is putting him in position to be the starter singularly next year. You know what I mean? But with what we saw from Emory Williams and everything this season, winning the backup job and everything like that, that wasn't necessarily a sure thing. So I know you're like saying after the injury, you're like, look, Tyler's not coming back, whatever, which I've been told y'all since the offseason. But you still have to hope that like your most tenured guy at the position can figure it out, grit his way through some performances and find a way to win some games, as opposed to playing Jacurri, burning his red shirt, which he was fiercely protective of, and things like that. So I see where you're coming from by playing the result as the process, but I don't necessarily agree with that and didn't along the path of the way that the season actually went, if that makes sense.
I don't recall us talking about Lichtenstein since he showed up from USC and played in the spring game. And I'm just thinking, who is this guy? He's pushing dudes into the backfield. He's batting passes down. And
yeah, I mean, he was a rotation guy. Spring, we're a little bit light on the roster as well. But, I mean, he's another local guy come back home from Cypress Bay High School in Weston and everything. So, that was good for him to come back to South Florida, be able to play for Miami, get another master's or two, depending on how he did in his couple years here and everything. But, yeah, he was a rotational guy. He was like a 2/3. I mean, we had Branson Dean and Thomas Gore as defensive tackles from the transfer portal. Then you had Jared Harrison Hunt and Leonard Taylor. And then Lichtenstein was, in that 2-3 kind of rotational area and things like that. But yeah, I'm less concerned with the fact that he played in the bowl game than the other player that you mentioned.
Eddie, thank you for the super chat stating here we should have phased out TVD and stuck with JB11. Mario,
let me stop you right there before you go on to the rest of that.
Yep.
I hear you. I just disagree with how the season was going. no ill will, no malice. We can disagree without being disagreeable, Eddie. But I hear your point. I just took a different viewpoint. Sorry, Mark, continue.
So Eddie also states here that Mario also has to do a better job at portal acquisitions. Too many duds on this team, and he fears that there are more duds forthcoming in the incoming transfer class.
I mean, again, respectfully, I disagree. Matt Lee and Javion Cohen were transfers. Henry Parrish was a transfer. Colby Young was a JUCO transfer, and he's taking the same path that Lawrence Cager took, and he's going from Miami to Georgia. Francis Malinoa.
Yeah.
Sorry, Francisco Kiko, the linebacker, second team All ACC. KJ Cloyd, low key, was balling. Jaden Davis isn't the biggest player in the world, but I would take what he did over to Corey Couch. You know what I mean? Like, okay. So if you want to say, well, yeah, Devontae Brown, the older Brown brother, who came from UCF, and then now he's in the transfer portal again. Yeah, but Jadaeus Richard from Vanderbilt at cornerback, he worked his way into the rotation through the regular season with guys healthy. You know what I mean? Looks like he could be in a position to take a step forward. Have there been misses? Yeah. Have there been the preponderance of misses as in previous years and previous regimes? Like, you remember Tommy Kennedy from Butler, first team All FCS, left tackle who was supposed to come into Miami and, challenge for that starting job and everything. And a freshman, 6'5", 240-pound Zion Nelson beat him out, and he was second team right tackle. That's a miss in the portal. But I think that we did better through the portal in the last year or two than you're giving credit for. It was not everybody, right? There was Frank Latson, who is transferring again to follow the circuitous path of Mark Pope and end up at UMass. Okay. But Tyreek Stevenson, second-round draft pick of the Chicago Bears in the NFC North, which is won by your Detroit Lions, by the way, was just named NFL Defensive Player of the Week overall as a rookie. Well, for the NFC. That's a guy who transferred back home and did a damn good job. You know what I mean? So, I get that there's all these emotions. It was funny. I was talking with Craig T. Smith, and he wrote his Monday musings on Tuesday because New Year's Day was Monday. And he was emailing me during the day. He's like, Cam, I'm going to scorched earth, bro. I am super scorched earth. There is not a piece of good in this program. Everything. I said, I'll support you if that's what your analysis is. I've been there. Maybe that's your free right to get the emotions out, and you go back and you think about it again from a more pragmatic viewpoint, and maybe you see something different. But if you want to go scorched earth and you want to post that, then go do it. There are few things that I, as managing editor, I'm going to say you cannot say. You know what I mean? And he went back and he looked at it. He said, okay, but I think, Eddie, in the same kind of a way, if you look at the list of transfers in the last couple of years and remove a little bit of the negative emotion of losing this bowl game and not having a successful season as what we wanted, I think there's actually a different picture there, objectively, from the performances that were put on the field. Not just, again, because we disagree in an agreeable kind of way. I really think that there are players you're going to be like, oh, actually, yeah. I think that would be the case.
Tyreek Stevenson, in Sunday's win over the Atlanta Falcons, had 2 interceptions, 5 tackles, and 4 passes defensed. He leads all NFL rookies in tackles, interceptions, and pass breakups, and is 7th in the league in interceptions.
And that is a guy he was at South Dade, transferred to South Ridge, went to Georgia as All-American, did not come to Miami, transferred back, got developed, was a second-round draft pick, and then now has sported this kind of a season that Mark just read about. And 3 weeks ago, he had this incredible diving interception where he was playing man on somebody else. Actually, it was a Kane-on-Kane crime. They were playing Cleveland, and they were targeting David Njoku up the seam on a combination route. So he's going up the seam, and then they had a comeback on the outside. Stevenson put his right foot in the ground, came across, dove across in front, and intercepted the ball in the end zone. That would have been a touchdown for David Njoku. Cane on cane crime. It's an incredible play. One of the best plays you'll see this year. That's a guy who was a transfer in the last couple of years to this program. All I'm saying.
And finally, we've got Paulo coming back. Thank you, Paulo. I'd take at least 9 wins seasons for the next few years, given the last 20 years. Harbaugh said about Ryan Day, not everyone can start at third base.
I mean, we're starting at third base in terms of like where our recruiting grounds are. I mean, we might be starting halfway down the third base line. You know what I mean? And yet, it's getting to be consistently 9-3 would be a huge, huge move for Miami, which has been, as often 7-5 as anything else. You know what I mean? Like, that is a huge step forward. And yet, when at the higher you go, the harder it gets. So getting to a 9-3 average, in Paulo's thing, saying like, yeah, we're going to have this year, next year, year after, 9-3, 9-3, 9-3. Dub. Big dub. Dubs in the chat, dubs in recruiting. Love that. Not all the dubs on the field, lost a couple games here and there. But then when you set that as your foundation, you're starting to really climb that mountain. So now it becomes really difficult, and you have to really work at the margins to go from 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12. Those steps are hard, but it would be an easier path to traverse from 9-3 than it would be 7-5, 7-5, 7-5. And now we're supposed to believe that 3 years on from now, all of a sudden we're going to take the leap up and be a consistent 9-win program. I agree with that. That would be a big win for Miami to get to being a consistent 9-win team again. Can we get there? The talent's there. Not maybe at every position, and it's not perfect, but overall, I think that we're getting there. And we just need to close gaps. That's in recruiting, because there's still been misses. That's been transfer portal, where, yeah, I think it's been better than Eddie remembers, but it hasn't been perfect either, right? So that's recruiting, talent acquisition, roster building. Injuries have taken a toll, on-field performance, and coaching and game operations. There is room for growth at every single level of this program. But to get to where we want to be, and as Paulo says, hey, maybe that should be 9-3 and then hope up from there. Even to get to that point from where we are, there will need to be growth on every single level. And hopefully we see it.
Appreciate y'all being here at the Voice of College Football, our Miami show that comes your way only because we got Cam Underwood from State of the U. Check out Cam's work and the rest of the staff there at State of the U. What is going on there this week?
Rob Weaver just wrote a recap of Miami basketball's non-conference schedule as we head into conference play tonight against Clemson. Craig's Monday Musings that came out on Tuesday is up. Mike Schiffman still leading our basketball coverage with his This Week in Canes Hoops. Good, Bad, and Ugly and film review from the bowl game are up. All of the signing day stuff. I've been so slacking. I did not write that Isaiah Thomas notebook yet, not because of anything other than pure, unadulterated laziness. I am so sorry to that man. I'm sorry.
Well, you did write it.
Well, I wrote it and deleted it. I haven't rewritten and posted the actual thing. So I will be committed to that. Also, some more stuff in terms of recruiting will be coming up from yours truly and some other things along the way. So please come on over and fan with us at stateoftheu.com, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at the State of the U. Personal Twitter is at Underwood Sports. And we're going to be all over the place. So looking to see what we can do to continue to bring you guys valuable content, which I do pride myself on as one of the thought leaders and, commentary and analysis across this or any fan base. I put the content that has been created and cultivated at my direction up against anybody, whether they do this full-time, part-time, passion project, whatever. And I stand 10 toes down on that, honestly and truly. And I've said it before and I say it again. if you look at any and every other Cane's website, they are using intellectual property and content that I created and started. And I can prove and verify that. So, and I'm not calling anybody out, and I don't have any ill will to anybody. I'm just saying I'm like that. And if you want to get like that and see all this great stuff that I'm talking about, the link is right in front of you, stateoftheu.com. Come back next Wednesday, hear more of these great takes, and we're going to keep it pushing forward straight like that.
Thanks, Cam. Appreciate you making it happen as always.
Anytime, bro. I'll talk to you soon.